We talked about that we wanted you guys to have a conversation about what you already know is in place in your communities, jurisdiction, area of the state. We wanted you to also look and set some achievable priorities based upon what you see as gaps in services, needs that your community or that your region may have. We also wanted you to take into consideration those challenges, right? We're not just looking at the good stuff. We need to identify where we have gaps, and then to talk about what might be some strategies to overcome those challenges. So we're going to hear a report out now in regards to what you guys have talked about and what those conversations have looked like. And we have some identified people. Excuse me. So I am going to start, if it's okay, Judge Gohagan, with Warren County. If you would please come up to the front at the mic.
Okay, I'm Kim Gohagan. I'm from Warren County. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this training this week. It has been an incredible experience. We've learned a lot. It's always a great opportunity for us when we can meet people from other counties and find out how they are operating and get ideas and collaborate. So it's been a really informative session for all of us, and we appreciate all the efforts of Shauna and everyone else here that put this together, so thank you. One thing that we talked about, one area we saw that was in need of significant improvement is when a person presents to the medical center in our facility. As of last year, they were waiting at the medical center for several hours for a response. So initially, the police officer would respond. They would pick up the individual from the medical center and transport them to the life skills building in handcuffs, where they would wait on average about 5 hours with the person handcuffed for a mobile assessment via Zoom. We were very frustrated with that process. It was a terrible service for the individual that was seeking help, that they were required to wait in handcuffs for so long for assistance via Zoom. So we started meeting with all of our local partners. We invited life skills and law enforcement, the medical center, the attorney from the medical center, the director of the ER, and probably forgetting some of the other people that participated in that meeting. But anyway, we started meeting and we started talking about our process and how we could improve the efficiency of that process. So what we came up with is we have a commitment now from our local law enforcement, and they have agreed to go to the medical center twice a day, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., and at that point, they serve the paperwork on the individuals that are going to be assessed. The individual stays now at the medical center. The medical center has agreed to allow the person to stay there in the ER. They are assessed at the hospital. They are no longer placed in handcuffs. So we've gone from a 5-hour waiting period for the individual in handcuffs to a 35-minute period at the hospital and no handcuffs before they have contact with the officer. So that's been a significant improvement. We're still looking at ways to improve our services. We desperately need a mental health court. We are hoping to start that court next year if we receive funding. I've met with fire chief, the police chiefs, room in the inn, basically anyone that provides services. We've met with pastors from our community. We have a lot of people that are outside the judicial system that want to help. Our local jailer is also very interested in a mental health court being formed in Warren County. So anyway, we have a lot of interested people that are working together to start this process. They all want to collaborate and try to improve the services that we offer to individuals in Warren County. Some of the things that we've learned recently is, and we have a great contact at Life Skills. Her name is Melanie Watts, and she's a former police officer. So she's really helped improve the communication between law enforcement and the judicial system, the judges, and Life Skills. We've learned there are a lot of services they offer that we were unaware of. So she's provided for court cards that list every organization in our community that provides a service and what their hours of operation are and what days they're open, so we can pass those out to people in court to let them know. For example, some days the Wellness Connection offers a meal. There are some places that provide other services, some clothing, food, medical, some assistance with some medical issues. So anyway, we have a list now of providers that encompasses everyone in Warren County that operates and we're trying to notify people of those services. A lot of people just don't know what's out there and what's available to them. So we're happy about that. We also have a mobile crisis unit that we've deployed and have been utilizing, which has been successful. We also have now a social worker that's responding with the Sheriff's Department to calls, which has led to fewer charges. We also have noticed that since we have people now that are being treated and they're not in handcuffs, we have a decrease in assault charges. A lot of people became more agitated when the police were interacting with them because they were placed in cuffs for several hours. It ended up leading to additional charges and additional contact with the court system. Those charges have been reduced, so that's also positive. But we also need some additional social workers to continue to work with our local city police. We're looking for additional people to fill that role. Transportation's an issue in Warren County. We do have a bus, but it doesn't go to all the areas that are needed, so we need to expand our transportation. Also, diversity in therapy. In Bowling Green, we have a lot of different cultures represented, and we don't have a lot of people that have access to, we utilize Language Line a lot, so we don't have a lot of people that speak their language or understand some of the issues in their community. So we want to improve the diversity and the services that we're offering. We also just recently apparently now have a NAMI representative in Warren County, so we need to meet and make contact with that person and develop a relationship there. We need to increase our treatment beds that are provided. That's another thing we've talked about. And drop-in centers. We'd love to have a drop-in center in Warren County. That's ultimately a goal for the future, but it's something we're going to work towards. We've talked to city commissioners, the mayor, we've talked to the county judge executive, and we've let them know that we really need to consider investing some locally in some of these programs. We need to improve our services. We have seen an increase in the homeless population in Warren County. We also have a significant number of panhandlers, and we're trying to find out how can we provide services to these people and discourage people from just stopping and handing out cash. What we want to know is what are the issues, what are the problems, and how can we address those issues and provide better services to those people. We've also developed a relationship with the VA clinic. We have an outstanding VA clinic there, so we're hoping once we start the mental health court, we can also add a veterans court as well. So anyway, those are some of the things that we're working on. Those are our goals, and the rest of my team is over here. I'm sure I forgot something. Anything else we forgot to mention that we talked about yesterday? Anyway, the biggest thing was opening the line of communication. Once we started having those meetings with all the important community partners, we found a time to all sit down in a room together and discuss all the issues. We found out that we all are working towards the same goal, and we realized that we all had to give a little bit to compromise. We had, it was a big ask for the medical center to agree to keep people at the medical center, but it's provided such a better service for their patients and for people in our community. It was just really a very inefficient system and a very uncomfortable situation for a person to be handcuffed for so long. And I'm sad to say that we operated under that system for a long time. So I'm happy we've improved that. Again, we're continuing to make improvements. Law enforcement is also very eager to improve the services that we offer. They also understand that they don't want to be the first responder, or they would like to have a social worker with them. They feel like there are people that are better qualified to interact and de-escalate a situation than they are. So anyway, it's basically been a compromise on all of our parts and working together. And I'm happy to say that so far it's working. We're all headed in a positive direction. So thank you all.
Yesterday, we talked a lot about judicial leadership. I think that Judge Cohagen definitely lifts that judicial leadership piece up. So thank you very much for your efforts locally and for the work that you guys have discussed here. The next one to report is out of Fayette County, and it's Margaret McGladry. Is Margaret here?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to echo the judge's comments about how helpful and wonderful it's been to have this educational opportunity, but also the opportunity to connect with colleagues old and new in person after the pandemic. Some of you hadn't seen only in Zoom, so it's great to be in relationship with folks interpersonally here in person. My name is Dr. Margaret McGladry, and I am the Criminal Legal System Faculty Co-Lead for the University of Kentucky Healing Communities Study, which means that we've partnered with several AOC agencies, specialty court in the house, yes, pretrial Services. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. On implementing overdose education and naloxone distribution as part of standard operating procedures, as well as embedding recovery coaches, peer support specialists, and care navigators into specialty court for helping link people to medication for opioid use disorder treatment. With pretrial services, we've been working on integrating different kinds of processes to get naloxone into people's personal effects as they're leaving detention centers. So really appreciate all the opportunities we've had for partnership with the AOC. Also been working with detention centers, probation and parole. Sarah Johnson's out there somewhere. So lots of wonderful partners in the house here. I'm going to be returning to University of Kentucky as a faculty member with the UK College of Public Health Center for Innovation in Population Health, which takes public health approaches to child welfare system improvement. So that's a little bit about me. We have a wonderful group from the Fayette County Action Planning Team. Just want to say hi to everybody out there. Amber Bishop, who is the newly minted Fayette County Specialty Court Program Supervisor and one of our amazing partners from Wave 1 of the Healing Community Study. Jana Brooking, the CHFS Office of Data Analytics over here. Joanne Goods, Read Coordinator for all of Kentucky Specialty Courts after she had been at Fayette County Specialty Court. Megan Laterman from UK College of Social Work, involved with a lot of different kinds of initiatives related to child welfare system improvement. Felicia Leischner, DOC Reentry Services. Hey, Felicia, serving Fayette County and beyond. And then also Utokia Smith with Fayette County Specialty Court over recovery services there. So a little bit about what our group identified in terms of what work is already happening. From the Fayette Specialty Court perspective, they have a brand new facility, which is fantastic. They're developing a relationship with a new provider, Sun Behavioral Health, and have a contract with New Vista, which is not only a CMHC, but also one of the CCBHCs that folks might have heard about with the Medicaid 101 session. We were talking about from Jana's perspective, access to data through the Office of Data Analytics at CHFS. It's a really wonderful resource to be able to harvest what's out there in terms of Medicaid data. We also have really solid reentry services in Fayette County with a dedicated reentry coordinator and an employment specialist serving Fayette County. And then we learned a little bit from Megan about the Be Well initiative in the K-12 schools in Fayette County, providing coping, mindfulness, and self-regulation skills for K-12 students, as well as the Handle with Care initiative, plus, of course, the resources provided by the Friskies. And then I told folks a little bit about the work that I'm doing with the Lexington Fayette County Health Department with their community health improvement planning. They prioritize mental health as a strategic priority. And we're going to be using Photo Voice, which is a participatory action research method that I specialize in to help facilitate next steps with that strategic planning process. Really exciting convening there. So with our second piece of the conversation, we identified some gaps in services and priorities for improvement. First, from the specialty court perspective, we saw that there's a need for care coordination and integration of veterans affairs into the continuum of care in Fayette County. But one of the big things that we've addressed in this summit that we wanted to talk about specifically here is issues of caseload and related burnout and retention challenges for child welfare, social work, New Vista service providers, especially after the pandemic really revealed the need for things like flexible work options, transportation, and telehealth. And what we're seeing is that institutional knowledge can really be lost as folks are leaving positions, causing cases to get lost in the shuffle. And providers are so overworked and don't have enough bandwidth to compile the data needed to justify additional staffing and capacity. So it becomes kind of this vicious cycle of a caseload and burnout issues. And then we talked more about some of the impact of this, the need for culturally and structurally competent service providers due to a lack of trust that we see between providers and clients and a lack of diversity in our workforce. Then specifically in terms of our system of care, we don't have one of those receiving facilities we heard about today from Dr. Balfour for medication stabilization after crisis intervention or involuntary commitments. This used to be provided by New Vista, no longer. And similar to Warren County, we saw transportation issues, especially with our non-emergency medical transportation provider where you need 72 hours of notice, lots of unpredictable and unreliable schedules and routes that make it difficult for folks to get to their treatment appointments, to meet with their POs, to get to court, especially to get to jobs when they're working second shift. And then we also see that there are just a lot of different kinds of limitations in terms of eligibility criteria, hoops, and red tape to access services, which means things are challenging for service providers because they have to keep track of who's eligible for what different kinds of programs with what restrictions. And then we also see that, so many appointments that folks have to keep have strict 10-minute windows. We heard a story about someone who was 3 minutes late to an appointment due to a child literally having stomach issues and vomiting all over the floor, and they were not able to meet that appointment. And this is maybe after you've taken 3 different bus roads, you've skipped your meals, skipped dinner, so that you can get to an appointment that has been canceled for being 3 minutes late. The direct quote there was, "It feels like playing Monopoly, where you have to go back to start." And this runaround leaves some people to feel like they would maybe even prefer to be unhoused rather than dealing with system navigation and these kinds of stigmas. So in terms of our priority, the strategy that we'd like to pursue to address this, we really need to address not only the stigma against needing help in our culture that deeply values self-sufficiency, but also the structural factors that are make it so difficult to access services. In terms of potential challenges, we see that it's hard to change deep-seated beliefs stigmatizing being dependent on services that come with privilege, right? We have a culture that values being independent when receiving services is associated with some kind of dependence on the state. And that makes it really difficult to access services. So it's not necessarily always stigma around identity categories, but it's also around the need for services to begin with. And then we see, as terms of challenges, silos and eligibility restrictions on resources to make workforce challenges really hard to overcome. So some of the strategies we saw for moving forward is that exploring things like backdoor entrances for services to reduce concern about being seen at provider organizations. Several of us shared stories about recovery community centers that have not only a front door entrance, but a backdoor entrance that allows people to come into services without necessarily being seen on a main street, especially if it's right across from a courthouse or a jail facility. But we talked a lot about how important it would be to facilitate opportunities for service providers to reflect on each other on issues of disclosure management to efficiently build relationships of human, trusting connection with our clients. Because we've got to overcome our assumptions that we know best what our clients need and bring our own humanity into our client interactions. And so, consistent with motivational interviewing, we know clients are experts on their own experiences, but we have such limited time to interact with folks, made worse by these workforce shortages. So how can we efficiently get to a point that we can actually do motivational interviewing well? Something that we talked about is that we need to be intentional about explaining our roles as service providers and address power differences head on. One of our group members said we need to be able to take off our badges to meet people where they are. So the question is, how can we professionally and appropriately share and disclose our own lived experiences with clients so that service providers can function more like peer support specialists do? Could we include personal details and experiences in our who is our team bios that we give to clients, not just our fancy bios and credentials? And I've developed a training, just to let my team know too, I've developed a training for CASA when I was working there that addresses some of these different kinds of issues, but we wanted to kind of surface these challenges of how do we meet people where they are when there's inherent power differentials, when we're wearing our badges, when we're bringing these different kinds of roles into our interactions as service providers. So thank you so much to our team and for the time and opportunity to share this with you all.
And Margaret, if you could just push send to Seth Stevenson. I saw you had all that. That would be great. Wonderful. Okay, from Laurel County, we're going to hear from Josh Boggs.
Good morning. My name is Josh Boggs. I'm a regional specialist with the Department of Specialty Courts. I sat with several agencies from Knox and Laurel County to identify what we've got going on already and what we need to work on. Currently, between the two counties, which are much smaller than Fayette and Warren, Knox County currently has a district drug court in place, along with Laurel has circuit, and it goes in hand with Knox. We have a system of care grant currently in place, CASA, teen court, IOP for adults and juveniles, several addiction treatment centers, sober living facilities, and several mental health agencies that work within our school systems and that we partner with in specialty courts along with FJS and pretrial. But what we identified that we need mainly in our county, is a mental health court, a crisis response team for adults and juveniles, maybe even mental health safety officers that are trained in CIT, additional crisis stabilization with our hospitals, CMHCs, and even a crisis stabilization unit that might be standalone from those facilities. But that's what we've identified so far, and hopefully within the next few years we may have some of that off the ground.
Great, thanks so much, Josh. And lastly is Pike County, Michael Thacker.
Good morning. I'm Michael Thacker. I'm with the Department of Pretrial Services. I'm an operations supervisor. On our table yesterday, we discussed what the challenge was, trying to determine what services do we have in Pikeville and in Pike County. And some of y'all in the smaller rural counties may relate that we found that we actually have more services than what we thought, right? Because oftentimes we compare ourselves with Fayette, with Jefferson counties, and we think that we don't have a lot of resources. So one of the big challenges that we have is how are we going to bring folks together, right? So we need to get folks together. We need to create these connections and these linkages. Now, Chief Judge of the Kentucky Court of Appeals, Larry Thompson, has been graciously offered to reach out, to engage our local judiciary, our district and family court judges, so that we can invite folks to the table, so that we can create this community commission, this forum to get folks together. And we already know that we have the model to do this. I think of FJS's FAIR teams or the specialty courts, drug court teams. Like, we have this on a smaller scale. So our mission, what we want to do is, with Judge Thompson's help, that we want to bring folks together, right? Because we know we have barriers in our community. We know we have issues surrounding transportation, for example. But we do have a lot of resources. Some may be underused, or maybe we're just not as informed about them. So that's what we're going to start with for Pike County, for Pikeville, is getting those folks together, creating those linkages, get the awareness out, and we're excited to see where this action is going to lead us. So, thank you.
I think the importance that we've seen is the uniqueness in each one of the counties that reported out, and needing to be able to find ways to really look at it. When I think of Pike County, I think of how large Pike County is, and that the communities are. There's many communities within Pike County. It's not, as we all know, it's not just Pikeville. And each county has that same type of thing, is that they're looking at the diversity just within their own community and county, but they're also thinking about those neighboring counties and how does this cross jurisdictions. So I wanted to reaffirm what I said yesterday, and that is that Shauna and her team are documenting all this information. Part of our role from the Administrative Office of the Court side is to help you guys in supporting this work. And so we are available for technical assistance, training. If you're not sure the who or the where or the how, we can help to make those bridges and figure some of that stuff out for you and to work with you guys on really being able to implement a lot of things that you want to do.